She once told me I was emotionally unavailable after I'd just buried her father for the second time because she didn't like the first cemetery. She said I lacked empathy, then used my dead mother's jewelry to barter at a flea market. She called me controlling, right after she redirected my nephew's college fund to remodel her meditation room. But my favorite line? "You're not the man you used to be." That one hit different. Because I'd been too damn busy saving her from drowning in her own mess to notice that she was already on someone else's lifeboat. The first moment I felt the floor shift was at my mother's funeral. Not the eulogy, not the burial, but in the car ride home. Carla reached into her purse and pulled out a folded paper napkin. She dabbed the corners of her eyes, though she hadn't shed a tear all day. Then she looked at me and said, "Your aunt said you didn't even offer to help with hospice." She was really hurt. There was a beat of silence. My hands were still on the wheel. "I paid for every damn invoice," I said, calm. "Every nurse, every pain med, every in-home night shift. You saw me do it." She turned to the window and said nothing. Just nodded slightly, like she'd been caught in the middle of a delicate misunderstanding she couldn't control. That silence, that graceful retreat, was her signature. She never pushed the knife. She just left it in your back and walked away like someone else put it there. But the real kick in the ribs came 2 days later. My cousin, Shelley, called to check on me. The voice was warm, but the subtext had frostbite. "Hey, I know money's been tight lately. Don't worry, we all understand. Carla said you were really stretched thin." Stretched thin? I just cashed out a second IRA to keep Mom at home for her final days. I bought her a heated hospital bed so she wouldn't have to spend her last winter freezing in a Medicare facility. I was stretched, all right, but not financially. I was stretched emotionally because the woman I thought was standing beside me was offstage feeding lines to the audience. I started noticing other things. Carla wasn't just mourning differently, she was managing perception. Reframing facts, letting concerns circulate like soft rumors. She told my brother I'd forgotten to call him on his birthday. She didn't mention that I was up all night with Mom on morphine, holding a towel to her mouth so she wouldn't choke. She told my niece I was acting weird lately. She didn't mention that I hadn't slept more than 4 hours in a month. Then came the break in the script. She left her phone unlocked one morning, rare. Carla was careful. She always closed tabs, cleared call logs, deleted texts. But this time she slipped. I was looking for a picture she wanted me to send to a printer, something for a healing wall she was making in the living room. I opened the wrong folder. Not photos. Voice memos. Just 3 files. Short. Innocent looking. I pressed play and heard my wife practicing. Not singing. Not meditating. Practicing. Rehearsing lines like a stage actor warming up. He's always been distant, you know? Like, emotionally. I don't think he even cried when his mom passed. Different tone. Softer. I tried to be supportive. But it's hard when someone shuts you out. Like, I felt unsafe sometimes. Unsafe. The word rolled off her tongue with hesitation, intentional, rehearsed. I sat there for a full minute after it ended, the phone still in my palm, hearing the silence behind her rehearsals louder than the words. She wasn't just twisting truth. She was engineering narrative, running mock interviews, rehearsing my trial. And the jury? My family, her friends, church groups, anyone who'd listen. Then came the land papers. My brother Luke came by that week. Brought beer, like old times. Said we needed to reconnect. I thought it was just the usual family glue. Turns out, he brought more than Miller Lite. A document Carla had prepped about merging some of Mom's land into a joint family trust. She said it would protect our legacy. Luke had already signed. I read the fine print. Carla wasn't mentioned as a trustee. She was the owner. She had used Luke's trust in me, his guilt over our distant relationship, to get him to sign off on a legal shift of property ownership. Land that had been in my mother's name since 1974. Land I mowed as a teenager. Land my mom made me promise to keep. I didn't scream. Didn't throw punches. Didn't confront. I copied everything. Emails. Memos. Dates. Screenshots. Made backups. Put them on a hard drive labeled Winter Projects. And from that day forward, I didn't ask questions. I just started writing. Because if she was going to revise the story of my life, I'd make sure the footnotes buried her. Permanently. She changed her ringtone. That's how it started. For years, Carla kept her phone on silent, said she didn't like being jarred by noise. But one morning, while I was making coffee, it buzzed and rang at the same time. A soft chime. Not the default one. It was a custom tone, 3 harp-like notes, delicate and oddly familiar. She didn't move to answer it, just walked slowly to the table, let it ring once more, then silenced it with a tap. "Spam," she said, without looking up. That was the first shift. I wouldn't have thought anything of it, except the same tone played again the next day. Same hour. 4:40 a.m. I'd woken up needing to use the bathroom and heard it through the wall, just faint enough to seem accidental. But it wasn't. It came every morning, exact to the minute. And she dismissed it fast, every time, like it was a reflex. That time, I didn't say a word. Just stared at the ceiling and listened to her breathing, slow, controlled, like someone pretending to be asleep. I started taking mental notes. And once you start seeing patterns, you can't unsee them. She never left her phone on the counter anymore. It was always on her or under a magazine, in a drawer, zipped into the side pouch of her yoga bag even when she didn't leave the house. She stopped leaving the room when I walked in. That sounds normal, I know, but Carla used to move constantly, always doing, always multitasking. Now, she'd pause her movement if I entered. Like a deer. Like she had to calculate whether to stay still or bolt. The worst part? She got nicer. Not warm. Not affectionate. Just performative. She started making little dinners for us again. Lighting candles. Telling me about her meditation insights, as if they were deep spiritual revelations instead of excuses to take long walks without her phone. She even apologized to my brother for misunderstanding the land paperwork. I didn't buy it, and I could tell Luke didn't either. He nodded like he wanted to believe her. That's the power she had. She didn't need you to be convinced, just confused enough to stay quiet. But what sealed it wasn't her phone or her tone. It was the guest bathroom. I went in there one morning because our master bath was being cleaned. Carla was out. I grabbed a towel from under the sink and saw a second toothbrush. New. Blue. Same brand as mine, but not mine. No sign of use, except the bristles were slightly wet. There was no water anywhere else. No soap residue. No damp towel. Just that one toothbrush, moist like it had been used seconds ago and returned carefully to its place. The kind of care you only take when you don't want to leave a trace. I didn't say a word about it. Just put it back, closed the cabinet slowly, and walked out. That night, I watched her closely. Carla never used that bathroom unless we had guests. And we hadn't had guests in weeks. I made us dinner. We ate. I poured wine. She smiled more than usual, almost too much, like she was padding a record. "You've been so present lately," she said, eyes bright. "It's nice to feel like we're reconnecting." I nodded and asked if she needed anything from the grocery store tomorrow. She said no. She said it too fast. And that's when it clicked. Everything she said now came just a beat too early, like she was answering a question before I asked it. Like she'd rehearsed every line the night before. I began checking little things. Credit card statements showed a gas charge 90 miles away on the day she told me she was sick in bed. She claimed it was a glitch, probably an old transaction posting late. I nodded. Said nothing. But I logged it. Then came the dog. Our spaniel, Mags, had always loved Carla. Would whine at the door when she left. But now, she didn't go near Carla's bag. Would sniff it, back away, then sit by the window. She barked one morning when Carla's phone buzzed. One bark. Sharp. Direct. Like a warning. Carla snapped at her, first time in years. "Shut up, Mags," she hissed, then looked at me and smiled again. Softer. "Sorry. She's been so reactive lately." I didn't reply. I pet the dog. And I made a decision. No more guessing. No more hoping. I started placing small traps, not to catch her in the act, but to watch her avoid them. I left my phone unlocked near hers. Left open receipts. Changed my cologne to the scent she once said made her nauseous, and she complimented it without missing a beat. I'd changed the game, and she didn't even realize the rules were shifting. The dread wasn't in what she said, it was in how perfectly she adjusted. Like someone who'd been preparing for war and just realized the battlefield moved. The war hadn't started yet, but I'd already mapped the terrain, and she was standing on a minefield. I found the fourth memo on a Thursday. Same folder. Same soft rehearsed voice. This one was different though, longer, and not a warm-up. It was a full take. I did everything I could, she said, with a perfectly weighted tremble in her voice. But sometimes people like Marcus, they're so emotionally detached, it starts to feel like abuse. She paused, as if waiting for an invisible interviewer to nod. He'd go silent for days. And I'd be left, scared. Just scared. I listened to it twice. My heart didn't race. I didn't feel rage. I felt cold. Like the furnace had gone out in my chest. I stood in the kitchen for a while after that, staring at the backsplash she insisted we renovate last year. I realized I hated the color. Gray. Like everything else she touched. Carla wasn't just preparing to leave me. She was manufacturing a narrative so carefully that when she did leave, I'd be the monster in everyone's version of the story. She wasn't trying to disappear. She was planning an exit so pristine, so narratively perfect, that I'd be erased, rewritten, villainized. That night, I waited for her to go to bed. I knew she'd have her herbal tea, the same sleepy blend she claimed helped her release trauma. I let her fall asleep while the rain started outside. Soft, steady. Then I went to the basement. I pulled the blue Rubbermaid tub labeled Carla's Memories. She hadn't opened it in years, but she made sure I never touched it. Inside were all the things she insisted were sacred, her journals from therapy, old cards from retreats, and the most important, her vision boards. 3 of them, laminated, covered in magazine cutouts, quotes, and images of women in yoga poses, mansions, ocean sunsets. I took them all and walked upstairs, into the bathroom, turned on the faucet in the tub. I lit a candle, lavender-scented, her favorite. I propped the boards against the back of the porcelain, one by one. And then, I burned them. Watched the edges curl and blacken, plastic blistering with a sharp hiss. The scent of lavender twisted with melting glue and lies. I stood over them and whispered every quote I could remember from the memos. He's emotionally unavailable. I felt unsafe. He went silent for days. My voice was calm, even. I wasn't yelling. I was done yelling. Yelling implies you still want to be heard. I didn't. When the last board dissolved into ash and soggy pulp, I drained the tub and let the smoke cling to the air like a ghost. Then I walked into the bedroom. She was still asleep. Soft, open-mouthed. I stood over her for a long time, not touching, just looking. When she stirred, I leaned down and said quietly, "I found your rehearsals." She blinked, slow, not registering at first. Then her eyes widened. "What?" she whispered, sitting up. I didn't answer. I walked to the closet, pulled out her floral suitcase, the one she always used for retreats, and packed it in silence. No clothes. Just the empty vision board frame, blackened at the edges. I zipped it up and walked it out to the porch. The rain was harder now. Good. I left it there. No note, no message. Just truth, soaking in. Back inside, she was standing in the hallway, arms crossed, face pale. "What are you doing?" she asked, voice thin. I looked her in the eye for the first time in months. "You don't get to leave this story," I said. "You already left. You just forgot to take your script with you." She opened her mouth, then closed it. She looked toward the front door. "That's abuse," she whispered. "This is control." I laughed. A deep, bitter laugh. Not loud, not cruel. Just done. "You don't get to rehearse abuse and then call it real," I said. "You want to be a survivor? Then survive this." I walked past her, turned off the hallway light, and left her standing there in the dark. That was the night the illusion died. Not with a scream, not with a slap, but with a suitcase in the rain and a fire in the tub. After that, I stopped pretending. I stopped answering questions I hadn't asked. And I started planning. Because twist number 1 wasn't that she was cheating. It wasn't that she lied. It was that she preemptively framed me, crafted the version of me she needed to justify whatever came next. I wasn't the husband anymore. I was a character in her story. And now, I was going to write the ending. It started with her laugh. The same one she used on me during our first year together. Light, feathery, like she was always just slightly amused by the world. I heard it again, but not from the couch beside me. It came through a voicemail she'd played on speaker without realizing the volume was up. "You're too much," the voice on the other end said, chuckling, male, familiar but just out of reach. She laughed in reply. That exact same laugh. Not a variation. Not a natural echo. A perfect replica, as if she'd copied it from an old file and pasted it into a new conversation. She ended the call fast and turned to me with that wide-eyed look, part startled, part calculating, like someone who just got caught pocketing something at the register. "Wrong number," she said. But her voice didn't crack. Her face didn't flush. Nothing human happened in her body. That's when the freeze set in. Something clicked, not emotionally, but mathematically. A cold calculation where the variables suddenly made sense. Her "I love yous" came at fixed intervals. Always after she got something, an apology, a favor, an agreement. She never offered them freely. They were currency. She recycled phrases like a con artist uses fake names. "You make me feel safe. I've never felt seen like this before." You just get me. I started hearing them in my head, lined up like plastic soldiers. Identical uniforms. No soul. Just function. I pulled up old emails, love notes, little messages she sent during our first years together. Then I found newer ones, drafts she'd left open by mistake, messages written to someone else, different names, same lines. Same wording. Same emojis. She used the same heart emoji at the end of her good morning text to 3 different people. I wasn't even the first one she sent it to most days. That wasn't the betrayal. The betrayal was realizing I wasn't unique in her story. I was a placeholder. A role. Someone she cast, rehearsed with, and replaced without rewriting a single scene. That's when I stopped hurting. The pain didn't evolve into rage. It just drained. Like finding out the house you built isn't real wood, it's veneer, and termites have been chewing it since the day you moved in. She practiced tears before confronting me about my emotional distance. I saw it in the mirror one morning. She was rehearsing the exact moment she'd accuse me, playing with angles, adjusting her face like a director on set. She never saw me standing in the hallway, never noticed the way I tilted my head, the way I memorized the movements, the timing, the lines. Her performance had always been too smooth, her grief too calibrated, her apologies too perfectly spaced. The logic snapped together like puzzle pieces soaked in ice water. And that's when I knew the revenge wouldn't be about fire. It would be about clarity. I wouldn't scream, burn, or break anything. That would still make me part of her play. The angry husband. The unstable man. I'd seen the drafts of that character already. She'd written him with precision. My revenge had to be colder, cleaner. If she was crafting a narrative, if she needed me to be the bad guy, then I would starve her story. I would leave no villain to fight. I'd remove every excuse she'd rehearsed, take away her stage, and then I'd flip the script. I began archiving everything. Her memos, her call logs, the messages she accidentally left open. Her digital footprint wasn't sloppy, just arrogant. She believed her charm erased suspicion. But charm doesn't overwrite metadata. I knew how to trace IP addresses, knew how to find deleted texts, how to back up accounts. I'd done surveillance work in the Navy. The irony wasn't lost on me that she called me emotionally unavailable while I was quietly collecting the full dossier that would one day dismantle her world. I didn't confront her again. I played my part, smiled at the right moments, let her think the fire had passed, let her lean back into her lies, confident, relaxed, arrogant. But every smile from me now was a countdown. Every "I love you" was a nod to a file saved under her name. She thought she was narrating my collapse. What she didn't know was that I'd already scheduled the final scene, and she wouldn't be in it. Just a list of sources, receipts, recordings, eyewitnesses. It wasn't revenge anymore. It was clarification. And when it was done, no one would ask what happened. They'd only ask how she ever got away with it for so long. She came home humming, like she was just out running errands, not laying the groundwork to dismantle my entire life. Same tune she used when she was nervous, barely audible, tuneless really, just a noise to fill the air so she didn't have to answer questions. I was sitting at the table, lights low, no TV, no music, just her, me, and the stack of printouts sitting between us like a pile of bones. I didn't say a word at first. Let her walk in, set down her keys, kick off her shoes, routine intact. I waited until she looked up and saw the man at the table wasn't the same one she'd rehearsed for. Then I slid the top sheet forward. Her text log. Side by side. Her message to me. I'm proud of how far we've come. Timestamp 10:42 a.m. Her message to him. He still thinks I'm in therapy. He has no idea. Timestamp 10:43 a.m. Her eyes froze. Just for a second. But the blink that came next was slower than usual. That was her tell. She blinked slow when she was cornered. You've been screwing a ghost, I said. Calm. Quiet. I know more about him than you do. She laughed. The wrong move. Her go-to deflection. I didn't flinch. Just tilted my head slightly. Do you rehearse your orgasms too? Or are those improvised? Her face twitched. Not the usual offended flinch. No. This was different. This was fear wrapped in confusion. I wasn't reacting like a man betrayed. I was dissecting her. And she knew it. You're being dramatic, she said, trying to pivot, trying to stall. You're acting like I'm some kind of criminal. I stood up, slow, pushed the chair back, walked to the counter, picked up a flash drive, held it between 2 fingers like a match about to be struck. 3 voice memos, I said. 1 practice story. No edits. Full delivery. I even know the tone you're going for, measured heartbreak, with just a trace of fear. She took a step back. Just one. Subtle. Almost imperceptible. This is insane, she whispered. I smiled then. Not because I was happy, but because I'd finally gotten what I needed. A crack. A slip. The actor realizing the audience had changed. Insane, I said. Insane is making my brother sign over land rights to you under the illusion it was for a family trust. Insane is using my mother's death to stage your victim arc. Insane is faking tears you practiced in the mirror while I was planning her funeral. Her lips parted. No words came. She looked like she might cry, but I knew better. Carla didn't cry unless she had a camera in the room or an audience primed to believe it. How long did it take to fake that smile? I asked. The one I fed for years? Her jaw tightened. The rage started to show now, masked as indignation, as disbelief. You think you're some kind of martyr? She hissed. You were cold. You shut me out. You gave me nothing to hold on to. And you gave me rehearsed compassion, I said. You didn't love me. You loved the role. The sympathy. The performance. You needed me broken so your version of events had weight. I was surviving, she snapped. You made me feel invisible. I stepped closer. You were invisible. Because I wasn't looking at a person. I was watching a script read itself. She swallowed hard. I saw her do the math, realizing there was no rescue this time. No family member to believe her. No friend I hadn't already warned. I'm not angry you cheated, I said. I'm angry I wasted my loyalty. Silence. Not the silent treatment. Real silence. The kind that drops when there's nothing left to say because every lie has been nailed to the floor. I picked up her wedding ring off the table. Set it down in front of her. You're not just done here, I said. You're done everywhere. I've copied every file. Backed up every memo. Everyone who mattered has a copy. Your next move better be out the door, or it'll be into a life where no one trusts you again. Her eyes flicked to the front hall. I didn't move. Didn't need to. She walked past me slowly, stiff. Picked up her coat. No suitcase this time. Just shame in her shadow. As she opened the door, I said it. Not loud. Not cruel. Just final. I hope he's worth what you just lost. And then I closed the door behind her. Quiet. Clean. Curtain down. She came back 3 days later, standing in the rain with no umbrella, makeup running, clutching something to her chest like a prop she hadn't rehearsed with. A letter. Of course it was a letter. Carla always believed paper gave her lies credibility. I watched from the window for a full minute before opening the door. I didn't speak. Just stared. She stepped in like she still belonged there, like the memories hadn't burned with her laminated vision boards and designer empathy. I didn't know what I was doing, she started, voice trembling. It got away from me. I said nothing. Just walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and leaned against the counter. She followed, dripping onto the tile. I thought I was protecting myself, she said, arms shaking now. I thought if I could just control how people saw me, maybe they'd finally stop seeing me as the failure. Her tone was cracking at the edges, but not from remorse. From panic. She wasn't sorry. She was cornered. I didn't want to lose you, she added, barely above a whisper. Then why did you rehearse how to leave me? I asked. Her lip quivered. She opened the envelope, pulled out the letter, and handed it to me with both hands like a confession. I took it. Read the first line. Dear Marcus, you may never understand how hard it was for me to love you. I stopped there and looked up. You couldn't even get the first sentence right. She flinched. Please, you're trying to rewrite the ending, I said. But this isn't a stage, Carla. And there's no applause waiting. She stepped forward and dropped to her knees. Just like that. A woman who once held rooms hostage with her poise now folded like a child who spilled milk. I can change, she whispered. I'll delete everything. I'll tell your family the truth. I'll fix it. I raised an eyebrow. Too late. They already know. That's when the crying started. Ugly, heaving sobs, not the calculated trickle she used at funerals and family dinners, but wild, mouth open weeping. She reached for me, clung to my leg. I didn't move. You destroyed me, she sobbed. You broke me down until I didn't know who I was anymore. I looked down, calm. You never knew. That was the problem. You tried on personalities like outfits. You wore me like a husband costume. And now it doesn't fit. She gripped harder. I loved you, she wailed. No, I said. You loved how I made you look. I was the steady one. The provider. The shield. And you stood behind it, painting target signs on my back. She screamed then, something wordless and feral. I let it echo for a few seconds. Let her tantrum fill the house she thought she owned. Seduce me, lie to me, blame your mother, I said coldly. You've run out of monologues. She grabbed the chair leg, used it to stand, wiped her face with her sleeve. You can't just erase me, she hissed. I'm part of this life too. Not anymore, I said. You're not even a footnote. You're a cautionary tale. Her face twisted in rage and desperation, as darting like a rat looking for a hole in the wall. He didn't mean anything, she spat suddenly. It wasn't even about sex. It was emotional. I was just lost. Then stay lost, I said, walking to the door. And don't come back looking for breadcrumbs. I opened it. The rain hadn't let up. She stood there, soaked, makeup streaked like a melted mask. I don't have anywhere to go, she whispered. Then you'll finally understand what it's like to build something from nothing, I said. She stepped forward, trembling. I stepped back. You'll regret this, she said, quieter now. You'll miss me. I looked her dead in the eye. You can't miss what was never real. And then I closed the door. This time, I didn't watch her leave. Let the rain swallow her. Let the silence seal it. Let the world take back the lie it gave me in her shape. She was gone. And now? It was time to clean house. For good. The rain stopped the same night she left for good, like the sky had wrung itself dry right alongside me. The house was quieter now, sharper. Her perfume no longer lingered on the hallway rugs, and every mirror felt less distorted. But that was just the surface. Below it, beneath the hardwood and sheetrock, the engine had already been running. Because while she'd been rehearsing her tears and repackaging her guilt, I'd been rebuilding the structure underneath her life. I hadn't just collected the memos. I'd mapped the timeline. The calls, the hotel receipts, the private Venmo transactions she forgot were public for 6 months. I traced the route from her lies to her leverage, and then I began tightening the noose. First, the finances. I apologized via email for our last blow-up and said I wanted to take her on a vacation, one last try at reconnecting. I said we'd need to refinance a few accounts, smooth some travel logistics. She responded within 5 minutes. I knew you'd come around. I sent over the documents. Hidden inside the boilerplate legalese were 3 key forms. 1. Granting me sole access to our joint retirement accounts under the guise of international travel security. 2. Transferring her stake in the land she tricked my brother into signing over, back to the trust, but now with me as the controlling party. And 3. Her electronic signature on a clause that nullified her right to any marital claims should she initiate separation. All wrapped in digital fluff, travel insurance waivers, trip liability disclaimers, standard authorization forms. She signed all of it from her phone at a coffee shop. I knew the exact coordinates. She tagged the location on Instagram an hour later, taking back my peace hot beverage sparkles. She always did love her own narrative. I let a week pass, just long enough to upload everything, every audio file, every text, every manipulated quote she fed my family, into a neatly curated drive folder. It was titled Carla_Truth_Project. Inside, I included a document explaining each piece of evidence, timeline stamped, cross-referenced, annotated like a legal briefing. Then I backed it up to 5 locations, 1 cloud drive, 2 encrypted hard drives, 1 flash drive delivered to my brother's office in a plain envelope, and 1 final copy mailed directly to her sister, who'd always said I was too quiet to trust. Let her read the truth in black and white, without the perfume-soaked filters. But the masterstroke was the job. Carla had always been proud of her new gig, community outreach director at a nonprofit for women in toxic situations. She'd built the role from nothing, curated it like a second skin. She told everyone it was her calling. What she didn't know was that I had become friends with the founder last year, before her hire. A man named Alan, an old Navy buddy. Quiet, private, no social media. The type of man who vetted every employee but never really looked beneath the surface once they were on board. I emailed him the compilation with a single note. She's not who she says she is. I'm not asking you to fire her. I'm asking you to read. He read it. Called me. Didn't say much. Just, thank you for the clarity. 2 days later, Carla posted a vague tweet. Sometimes closed doors are protection, not rejection. Moving on with grace. Grace. That was always her word. She said it like a shield. But the trap wasn't just about exposure. It was about cutting off her escape routes. I revoked her access to every shared account. I removed her name from every emergency contact list. I changed the security questions on all insurance profiles to things only my mother would know. She tried to weaponize my family, so I closed every gate, patched every hole, welded the locks shut. I even sent a quiet apology to my niece, the one Carla had turned against me with whispers and half-truths. I didn't defend myself. I just sent a picture of Carla's voice memo, with the quote highlighted. He never really connected with anyone. He just exists. My niece replied a week later. She always did say too much. The final step was the party. Our wedding anniversary. I hosted a small dinner at my place, just 5 people. Close friends. Family. Nothing loud. I made a toast. Thanked everyone for being there. Then I raised my glass and said, to surviving stories other people write about you. No one said her name. They didn't need to. She wasn't a person anymore. She was a file. A failed con. A folder in my archive. And the trap? She built it herself. I just removed the exits. She tried to fight the silence at first. Posted vague, spiritual quotes on Instagram, talking about rebirth, healing, shedding old skin. But within 48 hours, the comments dried up. Her support circle didn't vanish, it turned. The women she used to call her tribe started asking questions beneath those glossy, filtered photos. Is this before or after you stole from your husband? One wrote. Another, we don't protect manipulators here. She deleted the post, then her account. But the screenshots had already spread. Carla had always believed her charm could outpace consequence. She didn't understand that the people who praised her weren't loyal, they were bored. And bored people don't stay quiet when the truth's more entertaining than the lie. Her boss didn't just fire her, he sent her a formal letter revoking all references and removing her name from every press release the nonprofit ever published. The internal memo used 2 words I knew would shatter her: breach and narrative fabrication. She showed up to the office the next day, trying to cry her way through the door. Her desk was already boxed, her laptop wiped. A new intern was already using her parking spot. The building manager told me later she stood outside for 15 minutes just staring. Not crying, not yelling, just frozen, like someone trying to rewind a tape with their eyes. The man she'd been seeing, her emotional affair, the therapist who crossed a line, he ghosted her the moment I sent the memo recordings to the state board. I didn't name him in the formal complaint, but I didn't have to. I made sure the metadata on her file spoke for themselves. He was removed from his practice for ethical review. No one needed to tell her what happened. She showed up at his place one night and found the locks changed. He never replied to her messages again. She left 27 voicemails. I have copies of them all. She tried calling her sister for help next. The same sister I'd sent the drive to. She didn't pick up. Blocked her number. Their mother, too. Carla texted their group chat a long message about how I had hacked her personal files and distorted her truth. No one responded. By the next day, she was removed from the family Zoom invite for Thanksgiving. I know this because her nephew forwarded me the screenshot. Her bank account didn't freeze overnight, but the monthly transfers from our shared retirement stopped. Legally. Permanently. She didn't read the fine print on the form she signed. She never imagined I'd write her out of the story with the same quiet precision she tried to erase me with. She called me once, blocked number. Left a message. I have nothing, Marcus. Are you happy? I didn't respond. There's nothing left to say to someone who forged your name on grief and tried to bury you alive with it. The last image I saw of her was a candid photo someone posted from a dinner party downtown. Carla in the corner, standing alone, red dress slightly wrinkled, holding an empty glass, smiling at no one. The caption read, "She used to run the room. Now she just waits for the song to end." They didn't tag her. She's not invited anymore. Not to the parties. Not to the causes. Not to the family. She tried to build a stage made of fiction. And now? She's standing in the wings, watching the lights go out. I waited until the day she feared most, her birthday. Not the actual date, but the one she celebrated. Carla never used her real birthday. She said it didn't align with her spiritual calendar, so she created a symbolic one instead, June 9th, the date she claimed she was reborn after years of therapy. That's when she gathered her friends, her curated admirers, the social tribe that clapped for her every half-truth and applauded every speech she gave about healing from unseen wounds. She even hosted a live-streamed fundraiser each year to support women overcoming emotional neglect. This year, she tried again. I let her build it all, the Eventbrite link, the Zoom call, the Instagram flyer with her soft-focus face, and a quote she plagiarized from a therapist she once slept with. She titled it, "Becoming Visible, Healing from Gaslighting." I RSVP'd under a fake name. She didn't even recognize the handle. She let me in. The call had 112 attendees. Friends, coworkers, strangers from her echo chamber. She was seated in her usual corner, incense burning behind her, crystals stacked on the table like armor. She began with a smile. I want to share something personal this year, she said, eyes wet on command. Something I wrote during a dark time. She opened a journal. One of the many she claimed held her truth. That's when her face shifted. Slight. Imperceptible to them, but I saw it. The realization. The handwriting wasn't hers. Because it wasn't her journal. It was the one I had replaced. Identical cover. Slightly heavier. Inside, her exact words, transcribed from every memo, every deceitful message, every lie she rehearsed. Labeled and annotated for clarity. And it started like this. I'm not a victim. I just know how to make people think I am. She froze. Eyes scanning faster. The tremble hit her fingers before her voice. This isn't what she stammered, and someone in the chat asked, are you okay? I unmuted. Calm. Measured. She's fine. She just didn't expect her truth to be quite so literal. Cameras blinked. Names flickered. Chat exploded. She looked into the lens like it might swallow her. I didn't raise my voice. Just read. One quote at a time. Her lines. Her tone. Her strategies. She tried to end the call. She couldn't. I had cloned the host credentials a week prior. She couldn't stop the recording. Couldn't mute me. Couldn't leave. She sat frozen while I finished. You spent years building a lie so that when you finally burned your marriage to the ground, you could crawl out of the ashes and say you were reborn, I said. But all you are is smoke. I ended the call. Deleted nothing. Let it upload automatically. Within an hour, it had been reshared across every corner of her carefully built network. I never tagged her. Never needed to. Her friends did that for me. Her sponsors dropped her before dinner. Her speaking engagements? Gone. One of them emailed me to say they'd already refunded ticket holders. She tried to issue a statement. Claimed her account was hacked. Claimed the journal was forged. But too many people recognized her voice in the memos, her phrasing, her handwriting. Her favorite lines came back to crush her. She'd said them too many times to too many people. One of them stitched the recording into a TikTok. It hit 200,000 views in a day. The caption read, when your performance ends, but the audience keeps watching. I didn't watch it. I just forwarded the link to her last known email address with a single line. Happy rebirthday. She emailed back within minutes. Just one word. Please. I didn't respond. The next morning, I sold her old Prius. It was still in my name. I donated the full amount, $3 for 100, to a shelter that helps women escape narcissistic abusers. Sent the receipt to her mother. Addressed to Carla. In honor of her journey. They published it in their monthly newsletter. She'll see it. She watches everything. That's her curse. The final blow wasn't public. It was private. Quiet. The kind of silence that doesn't end. I sent her one final package, paper copies of her texts, her lies, her script. No note. Just a sticky tab on the last page. Read this to yourself. It's your favorite role. After that, nothing. No contact. No revenge left to take. Her destruction was complete. And the best part? I didn't lay a finger on her. I just held up a mirror and let her fall in. I know what you're thinking. Maybe I should have walked away. Maybe I should have taken the high road, let the truth come out on its own, let karma do the work. But here's what they don't tell you about karma. It's slow, random, and it never shows up when the house is burning. You stand there with ashes in your hands, and karma's still debating whether to send a breeze. So no, I didn't wait. I didn't forgive. I didn't pray that her conscience would wake her up. Because people like her don't have one. They just borrow other people's guilt, try it on, and see how well it fits. Carla didn't just cheat on me. She cheated on my reputation, my legacy. She stole my silence and narrated it as abuse. She took every minute I spent trying to keep us together and turned it into evidence that I was distant. She poisoned my family with edited truths, rehearsed tears, and that voice she tuned for sympathy like it was a violin. And I let it happen for a while. Because love makes you stupid. Loyalty makes you blind. But the moment I heard her practicing her victimhood into a voice memo, like she was prepping for an audition, that's when the curtain dropped. That's when I stopped playing husband and started playing God. Not out of malice. Out of necessity. You don't leave a snake in your bed and hope it evolves. You remove it, burn the sheets, clean the wound, and then you learn to sleep on concrete, if you have to, just to stay awake. I didn't just expose her. I dismantled her. She used lies like currency, so I crashed her economy. She used my name to gain sympathy, so I turned it into a warning. She tried to make me look like a ghost, and I became the shadow that haunted every room she entered after. But let me be clear, I'm not proud of what I did. I'm proud that I did it clean. No slander. No violence. No rage I couldn't trace back to a plan. I let her write the script. I just changed the ending. Now, she lives in the rubble she built for me. And me? I don't smile. I don't celebrate. I just sleep. 8 full hours, no interruptions. You ever want to know if revenge is worth it? Ask yourself what it costs to not take it. Ask yourself what it does to a man to live as someone else's lie. Ask yourself if you'd rather be a cautionary tale or the reason one never gets written again. I didn't win her back. I didn't win love. I won silence. I won clarity. I won the right to never explain myself again. And if you still think I went too far, ask yourself, how far would you go to make sure no one ever writes your obituary before you're dead?